Man, Philip DeFranco is on a roll lately. Can we just officially induct him into the left at this point, like the left-wing content creation sphere? I know that he's kind of a nonpartisan news guy, but he's not stupid. He covers the news for a living too. He's on top of all the crazy shit going on at any given time in news and politics. And I have watched as this man has had to cover back-to-back-to-back-to-back scandal where Trump blatantly does something evil, lies about it provably. DeFranco has to report on the evidence that he's knowingly lying for the 500th time, 5 billionth time, and then also report on the fact that all of these extremely wealthy, well-connected, conservative pundits are all defending it across the board. I have had to watch this man report that exact cycle hundreds of times since the last election. I believe that internally, he has probably been substantially radicalized. A lot of Philip DeFranco's news coverage has been constant updates on the evil actions of the Trump administration. It's easy to see it as, well, he's a news guy, so he's got to cover the evil shit the president is doing, and that's true, of course, but also, it's definitely getting the airtime, attention, and the amount of in-depth analysis that he feels it deserves, and the fact he feels it deserves so much tells me a lot. I am so happy to see that we're already witnessing large, well-informed people with platforms lose the ability to not talk about this. They are compelled to talk about it by their own morals, by their own knowledge. The fact they are so informed makes the need to talk about it. Another good example is Hank Green. I've loved Hank Green's recent content. He's been doing a lot of political commentary. This is a big part of that swing, that pendulum swing to the left the country is experiencing, that it's going to be a fun ride, guys. It's going to be an enjoyable ride, and it's going to peak with Trump melting down. We already know he threw his nuggies around the White House last time he lost an election. Just wait till we see what he does when he loses his attempt at a third term in office. He's going to go absolutely insane. Trump is going to go apeshit. With that in mind, the Republicans are at war with each other. I don't know if you guys have been following it, but the MAGA movement is fracturing. Civil war is going down, and I'll tell you, it's not a good time to be a conservative right now. We can feel, like, I'm not the only one, right, that can, like, actively feel our culture shifting towards the left, who can actively feel the reactionary pull out of this hellhole we've been in the last year or so. I'm seeing people across the board starting to stand up against this right-wing takeover. In fact, I saw a fantastic Halo YouTuber the other day, like a big deal. No, it wasn't a Halo YouTuber. It was Second Wind. It was a big gaming channel. Second Wind put out a video just going hard on Trump and the White House and the Department of Homeland Security for weaponizing Halo against immigrants. He specifically was like, so if you guys didn't see, the Trump administration is comparing immigrants to the flood. And he goes into a deep dive on the flood and what they are and the fact that they are a parasite that has to be eradicated entirely. Like every last atom of their existence must be eradicated. He points out how this is blatantly fascist. The Republicans comparing immigrants to the flood means their goal is to exterminate immigrants. Like the flood is not like a thing that you bat away with a stick. The flood is something you have to wipe all life in the universe away in order to exterminate. Otherwise, it will destroy everything. And he went into the detail about the lore implications of them making that comparison. And I was like, damn, we've got a Halo lore video debunking the DHS and the White House and calling them fascist. We are entering a new era of politics, and it is going to be a much better one. Yeah, the flood are not just zombies. They are, like, on an atomic level, they're more like a virus or a fungus in that way. Like, they spread everywhere. They're a problem. But yeah, obviously the comparison is blatantly fascist. That said, this has caused a massive MAGA civil war. Nick Fuentes and the Nazi side of the right, and of course the white nationalist side of the right that are themselves still Zionists or Israeli nationalists, are butting heads hard right now. And the shattering point of this schism is no doubt tieable back to the assassination of Charlie Kirk. You've got Tucker Carlson, you've got Brett Cooper, you've got Candace Owens, and many more, and of course Nick Fuentes, all on the TPUSA and Israel are behind the death of Charlie Kirk side of things. And then you've got the rest of the right, including the establishment right, who are, MAGA, arguing that Israel is, amazing, we need to keep funding Israel, and trying to debunk the idea that Israel had anything to do with Charlie Kirk getting assassinated. I personally don't think Israel was behind it, but the fact that this has become such a massive wedge issue among Republicans, I mean, it's the Civil War is happening. The MAGA Civil War is real. If you don't believe me, let's take a dive into it. Like and comment and hype this video if you want to support it, and don't forget to subscribe. Oh, and also join my fan Discord if you want to be a part of the community. We just overhauled it, and it's great now. So make sure you join the Discord if you haven't already. Let's get into this. Philly D, my Philly cheese steak.
About this MAGA right-wing Civil War, because it's actually been going on for a bit, but it really heated up with this one interview. Because we had former Fox host and now podcaster Tucker Carlson bringing on the leader of the white nationalist Groyper movement, Nick Fuentes. Now, with that, Carlson himself has been called a white nationalist by critics for a long list of past comments he's made, especially his promotion of the so-called Great Replacement conspiracy theory, which suggests that there's a scheme to gradually replace white people with non-white immigrants.
One thing worth noting is that on a personal level, Tucker Carlson only appreciates Trump's ability to trigger the left. On a personal level, Tucker Carlson kind of hates Trump, and I don't know if you guys know this. It came out years ago when Fox News was sued by the company Dominion Voting. Tucker, in particular, made some false claims about their voting machines being hacked. It was not provable in court. They lost, and there was a big settlement where Fox News lost a lot of money. And now if you say Dominion around anyone from Fox News, they start frothing at the mouth and they run away while pissing and shitting themselves. If you say Dominion 3 times, Fox News will shit. Everyone at Fox News, they'll just spontaneously shit. That said, though, it came out during those court hearings that Tucker had texted multiple times internally within the company that he despises Donald Trump and that he's tired of, quote-unquote, covering for his lies on air every night in front of America. So now that Tucker Carlson is independent, outside of grifting to appeal to Trump supporters, we all know that he's not out here like just trying to peddle whatever benefits Trump for the sake of Trump. He's using Trump and the hype behind Trump to build his own hype with an independent platform, which is exactly why he's willing to jump sides and get on board with the far more radical, hyped up Nazi side of the right at the moment and start to draw questions against what the side he used to be on, which was the MAGA Zionist side of the right.
Even for Carlson, for many, Fuentes was seen as a uniquely far-right guest, especially when it came to anti-Semitism. And while you had people sharing moments from Carlson like this...
What I do think is bad, just objectively bad and destructive, is the all Jews are guilty, or all anybody is guilty of anything, because that's just like not true.
You also had people sharing clip after clip of this nearly 2.5-hour interview where Carlson seems friendly and sympathetic.
I agree with you.
So, incorrect. And do not fall for it with Tucker Carlson here. He is not moderate. The reason why his responses sound so reasonable here is because Nick Fuentes is so mask off. Nick Fuentes makes other conservatives look less insane by comparison, even when you don't actually see what he says. What Nick probably just said is that one individual doing something reflects on all of the people in that demographic. And he just says that straight up publicly. He doesn't couch it in the slightest bit of euphemism or dog whistling. He just says it straight up, which really puts Tucker in a position where he either has to pretend like he doesn't agree with that, and of course he does agree with that in principle on a lot of issues, but he can't own that as blatantly as Nick does. That's not his brand. It is Nick's, but it's not Tucker Carlson's brand. He likes the plausible deniability still being there, which is why when Nick just lets the mask fully slip, you're going to see Tucker come back with what comes off as like, oh, wow, broken clock. Wow, Tucker was pretty based here. And it's, well, no, Tucker just can't agree with the insane statement that Nick just made without destroying all of his plausible deniability at being a white nationalist.
On some of the things you're pivoting against, for sure.
Yeah. I'm an American nationalist.
Me too. Worrying about who lives in your country is far right.
Apparently, there's a lot of these neocon Jewish types behind the Iraq War. There's the foreign aid complex, which is really unique. It was the Zionist...
Wait, hold on. Am I the only one who sees it? Am I the only one that sees the hilarious thing happening right now on screen? Let me get rid of my dono bar so you guys can see it. The Philip DeFranco show is covering the Tucker Carlson show watermark. The Philip DeFranco car show. It looks so fucking funny, too. That's really good. I like that. I like how it's also censoring Tucker Carlson's show so people can't as easily look it up. That's pretty funny.
Jews, like Dave Rubin, like Ben Shapiro, like Dennis Prager.
Fox is not a Jewish business, though.
Well, Rupert Murdoch is an ally of Netanyahu.
I'm not that interested in the Jews, but I'm very interested in the foreign policy question.
We do, on some level, need to be pro-white. Not to the exclusion of everybody else, but recognizing that white people have a special heritage here. You say identity politics like it's a bad thing. I think
You'll notice that a lot of white nationalists love to, they love to just make these matter-of-fact statements, and they rely on people not thinking much more past that point. Like, the majority of people who came to America initially and founded the colonies that would develop into the country we exist in today were WASPs, which means America is a white country by default, right? That's the assumption that follows that technically correct statement, that yeah, most of the founding members of America's government and colonies were WASPs. They have all sorts of explanations for why Native Americans don't count. Trust me, they've got all sorts of creative and hateful explanations for that. But most of them are might makes right, by the way. But of course, it's a very much a false just assumption. Oh, if America was primarily founded by WASPs, then it must be a white country. Who says that? What is the logic there? Where is it inscribed upon the stone tablets of God that a country founded by one race must remain that race? Let's assume everything about the right's historical explanation of America is true, even. It's a complete, just hollow argument. The fact that people just fill in the blanks for themselves is what they rely on. But there is no logic behind why a country that started white, quote unquote, should stay white. You know, like, there's no logic behind it. They don't make the argument for why that is what should happen. They just make the case that it has always been a certain way and leave you to assume that if things change, then they must be changing for the worst. And it leaves them with very little to have to actually argue. They just get to make statements about demographic changes and leave people who are nervous about those changes to assume the worst about them. That means that the average groyper can be a variety of different radical levels, right? There are probably groypers out there that think that aren't actually that radical. They just probably enjoy Nick Fuentes as an entertainer more than anything. And then you've got the groypers who think that Western civilization will fall tomorrow if a single extra brown person comes into America. It's a broad audience as far as, like, the political appeal.
Identity is reality.
Identity is a reality.
Right, and so the full interview, it gets millions and millions of views. The clips, they go viral, pick up tens of millions of views across multiple platforms, and of course you then have people reacting. And among those, you had Ted Cruz, who also had a very hostile interview with Carlson not too long ago, and he said,
if you sit there with someone who says Adolf Hitler was very cool,
Ted Cruz W.
And that their mission is to combat and defeat global Jewry, and you say...
Isn't it crazy that he killed all those people? Like, it's fucking crazy. Like, everyone knows he's the Zodiac killer, but no arrests ever been made. Like, it's crazy that people even feel comfortable being in the same room as him.
Nothing? Then you are a coward, and you are complicit in that evil.
Right, and that is you had Republican and former Senate leader Mitch McConnell saying, last I checked, conservatives should feel no obligation to carry water for anti-Semites and apologists for America-hating autocrats. But maybe I just don't know what time it is. But then also, someone with a lot of sway in the conservative movement came to Carlson's defense, Kevin Roberts. Right, he's the president of the Heritage Foundation, one of the most prestigious right-wing think tanks in the country and the creator of Project 2025.
Christians can critique the state of Israel without being anti-Semitic. The Heritage Foundation didn't become the intellectual backbone of the conservative movement by canceling our own people or policing the consciences of Christians. And we won't start doing that now. We will always defend truth. We will always defend America, and we will always defend our friends against the slander of bad actors who serve someone else's agenda. That includes Tucker Carlson, who remains, and as I have said before, always will be a close friend of the Heritage Foundation.
With him then also adding that he disagrees with and even abhors things that Nick Fuentes has said, but that canceling him is not the answer. But then with that, you had other
So you've got some Republicans that are like, no, we can't do cancel culture even if they're Nazis. So that's, I mean, wonder where their political leanings lie that they aren't really letting up. But a lot of the Republican establishment is not taking that route. A lot of them have been going after Nick Fuentes, Candace Owens, and others hard. The schism is real.
Strongly disagreeing with, for example, Matt Brooks, the head of the Republican Jewish Coalition, telling Jewish Insider that he was appalled, offended, and disgusted that Roberts and Heritage would stand with Tucker Carlson and Nick Fuentes as somehow being acceptable spokespeople within the conservative movement. And now you also have Ben Shapiro jumping into the mix.
What's so crazy about it is this is what they made for themselves. This is the situation they created. You can't deny it. It's the situation they made for themselves. They used people like Nick Fuentes that had this particular effect on youth to radicalize a ton of people into going into their 20s into the most far-righters imaginable. And they were useful because they voted, they were politically active, they were loud, they were everywhere. But when Israel and Jewish people become a wedge issue in this country, in the political landscape, and Republicans have to choose to back the country they absolutely could never withdraw support from, Israel, or to, appease the extremely useful tools that are the ultra far right, it's an impossible decision. It's an unstoppable force versus an immovable object. Like the GOP and Republicans and MAGA cannot stop backing Israel. Trump cannot stop backing Israel. That cannot happen. That is not an option. It is also not an option to openly, loudly, and repetitively disavow Nazism and anti-Semitism. That is not an option for Republicans either. They will lose if they do that. They rely on the hyper-radical, far right vote. It is such an impossible situation of two impossibly powerful forces pulling against each other on either side of the Republican Party. The only outcome that can occur is a great rip, a series of tears. That's the only path that we can go down next for Republicans.
Throwing punches at both Roberts and Carlson.
It is not cancellation to draw moral lines between viewpoints. It is not cancellation to refuse to signal boost Hitler's supporters like Nick Fuentes. It is not cancellation to criticize Tucker Carlson for rhetorically fluffing Nick Fuentes and other anti-American crackpots.
In fact, Shapiro dedicated his entire show today just to the Carlson-Fuentes controversy, and he didn't mince his words.
They are white supremacists. They hate women, Jews, Hindus,
It's happening.
many types of Christians, brown people of a wide variety of backgrounds, blacks, America's foreign policy, and America's...
Before we listen to any more of Ben Shapiro going off here, I want to tell you guys a brief story, okay? I'm an unk now, because I'm 26, and many of you guys are either old enough that you just weren't into lefty politics back then, because you just didn't get into it yet, or you're young enough that you hadn't aged into it yet. But I'm going to tell you a story. Back in 2017, the anti-SJW community owned YouTube. They owned Twitter. They owned social media. They just fully owned it. There was no opposing them, and there was no speaking left-wing ideas without them dogpiling you. But then, a content creator named Rage After Storm made a video about how she had been red-pilled on a new idea that most had never heard of before, called the Great Replacement. She was a white nationalist, and she called it the white replacement meme, though. Or the white replacement theory, though. And she was so open that, it meant that white people were being replaced by brown people through immigration, and white majority needs to be maintained, was basically her premise. And she was very open about it, unapologetic, and this is somebody who had been doing the whole, I'm a moderate centrist for years, right? Every time she got criticism. This caused a big schism. People like Chris Reagan called out people like Rage After Storm, but people like Andy Worski, Sargon of Akkad, they saw her open the floodgates of, you know, admitting to being way more far right than she really was, and all of a sudden, all these people were letting it out. You had entire panel shows where the biggest right-wing content creators on the platform, from Blair White to Andy Worski to Sargon of Akkad, you had Destiny go on there a lot. You had all the big names of the time, and they ranged across a lot of areas. I think Shuonhead even went on them a lot, arguing over whether or not the Great Replacement Theory was real. And, I mean, these fights got nasty. It got blood-sporty, it got angry, and a lot of creators... Yeah, this is where Andy Race Worski became a nickname. And more or less, it all blew up. They schismed so hard. It went from being such a tight-knit community of content creators and propagandists. They hung out together and had, like, house parties at VidCon. And, like, it was a thing where every VidCon, every year, for, like, 3 years straight, you had the big anti-SJW YouTuber photo op. I wonder if I can find that, by the way. I wonder if I can find that. 2016 VidCon anti-SJW photo. I bet it can be found. Oh wow, so many deleted things. Where is it? Here it is. Here it is. Most of you will not recognize most people in this photo. But I do. They're all doing the OK symbol. Back then it was this whole thing that, like, the triggered SJWs thought that the OK symbol was racist. So they're all doing the OK symbol and holding the Kekistan flag, which, yes, it was deliberately designed to look like a Nazi flag. All of these people back then, I like how this guy with the man tits has a shirt that says "Shit Lord." This picture made my IBS flare up. Yeah. I cannot express to you how many millions of teenagers these people collectively influenced politically. You genuinely, you don't know. And I need you to know that a lot of the people here range broadly in terms of politics. Take, for instance, you got Chris Reagan here, and you got some black guy. They're totally cool these days. Like, they're very cool, like, politically based as fuck these days. But what speaks volumes is the fact that you had people like Chris Reagan and Derek Blackman hanging out with these guys, like with Sargon and Andy Worski, and this guy with Shitlord on his shirt. Like, it goes to speak, yeah, it goes to speak volumes that, like, it was weird times. It was weird times, and the big schism ripped everything apart. I remember some black guy, blast from the past. He still makes content. He's based as fuck these days. His current channel is called his current YouTube channel is Derek Blackman, which is just a funny as fuck name, but that might actually be his last name. I don't know. Who knows? I don't know his actual last name. I'm not gonna Google it. I'm not gonna dox him. Anyway, though, I think it's very interesting how much this has blown up. You know what I mean? Like, this has basically become a repeat of history, and now we're seeing white nationalism and anti-Semitism schism the right once again. Because once again, they relied so heavily on that plausible deniability, on the dog whistling and the vague posting, leaving people to just come to their own conclusions that just so happen to be extremely far right.
And he didn't mince his words.
They are white supremacists. They hate women, Jews, Hindus, many types of Christians, brown people of a wide variety of backgrounds, blacks, America's foreign policy, and America's Constitution. They admire Hitler and Stalin.
With Shapiro then warning that they're now being normalized within the mainstream Republican Party, and then adding,
The main agent in that normalization is Tucker Carlson, who is an intellectual coward, a dishonest interlocutor, and a terrible friend.
Now with all this, for context, Shapiro's involvement here, it is likely something that he would already do, but also it is personal, right? He's fought with Tucker and Fuentes before, but they also brought his name up a lot during the interview, right? With Fuentes saying that he was actually a fan of Shapiro by the time that he went to college in 2016, having befriended many writers from the Daily Wire and getting cultivated as an up-and-coming right-wing debater. But then, according to his account, they first butt heads over Israel.
I tweeted to Ben Shapiro. I said, I've never seen anything on the Daily Wire that's actually critical of Israel. He quote tweets me and says, to accuse a Jew of dual loyalty is the surest sign of anti-Semitism. So then I put out another tweet similar. I said something like, if you're China first, you should live in China. If you're Mexico first, you should live in Mexico. If you're Israel first, maybe you should go live in Israel. And again, he quote.
This is the type of very compelling rhetoric that Nick Fuentes uses, by the way. He tries to oversimplify any logical argument into something that can be as black and white as possible, so that, like, his logic to come to a conclusion when he recites it seems infallible, right? So his logic is, if you're insert country first, then you should live in that country. If someone hears that, I mean, I imagine many of you might even hear that and think, that actually kind of makes sense, right? But the entire premise is bunk. Either Nick Fuentes will start from a good premise, but then allow the audience to come to a bad conclusion with a leading argument, or he will start with a bad premise, but then use sound logic based on that false premise that makes the false premise itself seem reasonable. That is the way he does things. It's either or of those two. He starts with a good premise and then builds bullshit on top of it, or starts with a bad premise and builds good logic on top of it to make the bad premise look good. And that's what we're seeing here. The premise that Ben Shapiro is Israel first, that's not, like, no one is insert country first. People don't have to be insert country first. Nick Fuentes' false premise is that he's the America first guy, so of course he believes there are people whose entire political ideology can be boiled down to insert country first. That is the false premise he builds on, and when you're so distracted by the logic of, well, if you're insert country first, you should live in that country, you forget that you don't even realize, wait, who says that he must be Israel first? And I'm not defending Ben Shapiro here. I am arguing against the fundamental logic, the simplified worldview that Nick Fuentes peddles. And this flies for people because, and this is a key, Nick Fuentes primarily appeals to teenagers, young 15, 16, 17-year-old dudes who don't have a lot of life experience and haven't quite developed their critical thinking skills much, if at all.
Tweets me and says, you're an anti-Semite.
So you're an 18-year-old college freshman, you're clearly talented and you're engaged, you're really interested, and you ask not crazy questions, like, what is this?
Mm-hmm.
And
there you can see the effect right there. He asks not crazy questions. Why is he asking that question? What was the statement that led into that question? Because if the question doesn't sound crazy, more often than not, he's asking it because it's based upon an insane premise.
rather than explain it, they just call you a racist, call you an anti-Semite.
And so he claims that after a few months of what he said was just asking questions about Israel, he was finally excised from the movement. And with that, he claimed that the Daily Wire was pivotal in blacklisting him, this even though, in his words,
and not to be that guy and say that thing, but like, my best friend is a Jewish person.
Right, but on his show today, you had Shapiro going on the offensive, playing a series of clips meant to prove that Fuentes' beliefs had extended far beyond just innocently questioning U.S. support for Israel. With Shapiro playing clips where it appears that Fuentes is saying that women actually want to be raped, instructing his followers to kill, rape, and die in his name, oppose civil rights for women, arguing that Jim Crow wasn't a big deal and was actually better for black people, stating that racism is justified, questioning the history of the Holocaust, and calling Hitler really fucking cool.
Hitler was a pedophile and kind of a pagan. It's like, well, he was also really fucking cool.
Though also with that, you had people defending Fuentes kind of landing in three camps or in a mishmash of them.
That's the thing about Nick. A lot of the right likes to maintain that plausible deniability, but when you have someone as huge as Nick and a lot of the right wants to see collaboration with him, It's like, how do you keep a guy like this around and maintain your plausible deniability? How do you defend his right to speak and maintain your plausible deniability? It's gotten too extreme.
Right, some seeing those clips and just saying based, to others have said some of these are not recent takes, and others saying that they're out of context. But then with all this, you had Shapiro turning to Carlson, with him playing a series of clips where Tucker apparently defends Vladimir Putin, defends the Venezuelan president Nicolas Maduro, gives a softball interview to the Iranian president, downplays Hamas, and ties Jeffrey Epstein to the Israeli government. And with all this, you had Shapiro pointing out that Carlson also recently interviewed Candace Owens, who herself hosted Nick Fuentes before that, and arguing that this is a pattern.
You bring your dirty, ugly ideologies to Tucker Carlson's rhetorical car wash. He mixes it with some of the vestigial respect Americans have for him from his Fox News days, and voila, hideous ideas suddenly become mainstream. But there's no...
Gotta admit, Ben Shapiro is just a good rhetorician. He just is. Like, he's good at it. Like, whoever writes his scripts is, at least, and his delivery is solid. Like, those are good insults. Like, that was a good burn on Tucker, and was well delivered, and was actually well reasoned as far as, like, burns go. You know what I mean? Like, that was solid. Like, he hit on a lot of particularly true points in one single statement.
Question that Tucker has become the most virulent super spreader of vile ideas in America.
You know, also in this situation, Shapiro, he wasn't the only high-profile commentator targeted by Carlson and Fuentes. Because they also talked about Mark Levin and claimed that he was actually the one who first radicalized Fuentes in 2016.
He goes live and he says, America's becoming a majority non-white country. Has anybody...
You do not have to hand it to them? Well, I mean, you don't have to give them any credit at all, but, like, recognizing that they are good rhetoricians is kind of important. You know, it's kind of the main reason why there's a whole fascist problem in this country, after all. So yeah, like it is... when you see them dunking on someone, that is bad. And they don't have to lie about that person to dunk on them. Getting to see how well they are trained to do, like, media presentation and stuff, not directed at lying about minorities, but instead at debunking someone who does genuinely need to be debunked, it is cool to see, in a sense. There is a uniqueness to that I couldn't help but point out.
I think that's a good idea. And I was thinking to myself, yeah, that actually doesn't sound so good.
Right now, while speaking before the Republican Jewish coalition, you had Levin shooting back at them.
For 6 months, I've been fighting these bastards, whether it's Tucker Carlson or whether it's Nick Fuentes, and I've been looking over my shoulder looking for help. And you know what I found? Nothing. What do you mean we don't cancel people? We canceled David Duke. Donald Trump canceled David Duke. We canceled Pat Buchanan. We canceled the John Birch Society. We canceled Joseph Sobran. We canceled pornography on TV. We cancel stuff all the damn time. Hitler admirers, Stalin admirers, Jew haters, American haters, Churchill haters. You're damn right we're going to cancel them and deplatform them.
And then, you know, there were all...
That is going to cause immense strife. That is going to cause immense fucking strife, dude. Oh, God. I could not imagine a worse statement for the right to be getting right now and so far as, like, mending things. That is going to cause an even greater schism. I cannot imagine a statement that would piss off the Nazis more.
Also, others who got caught in all this, not just Ted Cruz, but George Bush, Mike Huckabee, John Bolton, and others getting lumped together by Fuentes and Carlson as so-called Christian Zionists. And with that, you had Tucker in particular accusing them of heresy and saying that they've been infected by the brain virus that is neoconservatism. You know, for now, we're gonna have to wait to see what happens, yes, in the long term, but also even just this week. But the Carlson-Fuentes interview kicked things off. You now have Shapiro, but there's gonna be a lot more back and forth happening. Though again, it didn't all stem.
This is a really good video from Philip DeFranco. I know you guys probably all watch him, but don't forget to watch this video and leave a like on it. The likes matter. You gotta support the original video. And of course, you can support my video as well if you think it deserves it. You can drop a comment too, that also helps a ton. And subscribe and ring the bell icon if you want YouTube to tell you when I go live or upload in the future. Don't forget to join my fan Discord down below either. That's the main hub of my community and fan base. And on top of that, we just remodeled the whole server. It looks awesome now, so make sure to join. Link down below. Thank you for watching, and I hope to see you again.